whānau o tūtāne, nau mai whakahoki mai ki te kōnai ipurangi nei a tūtāne, pai ki te hoki mai koutou I tēnei rā, ko tēnei te kaupeka tuarua, wāhanga tuatoru. Hello to the Becoming Tāne family. Glad that you could come back. This is Season 2, Episode 3. This is the podcast where guys can learn and grow from other guys that may be struggling with the same challenges as you. In this episode, we'll be talking to Rikki Solomon. Rick shares some words of wisdom he picked up along the way. But before we talk to him, I'll share a little background information on Rikki. Rick was born in Hastings. He is the mātāmua, or oldest, in his whānau. His whānau is a blended whānau, and there are 10 siblings between two whānau. Rikki went to the following schools: Alsthorpe Primary School, Te Mata School, Te Hauki School, Hastings Boys High, Church College of New Zealand. Once he finished high school, he also completed a national certificate in embalming from the Central Institute of Technology. Rikki has a master's degree in applied Indigenous knowledge from Te Wānanga o Aotearoa and is currently working towards his doctorate of Indigenous Development and Advancement at Te Whare Wānanga o Awanuiarangi. Rick had a couple of jobs growing up. One, while they lived on the farm, he worked on the farm, and then on the milk truck, delivering milk around the community. Once he completed his education after high school, he worked in the funeral industry as an embalmer and funeral director for over 20 years. Rick is currently doing work with Tūriki Health as Mānamataka Māori, does the same sort of work with Mahi Atua in regards to the Mānamataka, and he contracts to various Māori kaupapa. Rick has been married to Renee for over 20 years. Rick claims that Renee chased him, but somehow I don't believe it. Rick and Renee have 2 amazing children, their daughter Arwen and their son Odin. This is Street Talk. What is your definition of masculinity?
Masculinity to me means standing in your strength and your power as a male, showing up in your true form, ensuring that you can be a leader and not overuse your power as a male, but ensuring that anything and everything you do as a male is true.
Masculinity to me is fatherly touch that people need sometimes. So that stability, that confidence that they can lean on someone for that strength that some people just need in times of need.
Being in touch with all of them, so being in touch with love, peace, success, vulnerability, well-being, resilient, and leadership. I think that's they're pretty important things to be on top of, really, to be really masculine.
To me, masculinity is attributes of strength, both emotionally, physically, but it can also mean not being afraid, in particular to show your feelings to those that you love.
It means just sort of being man up for a lot of stuff, own up to your problems, being face to face, if you had issues or things, if you need to solve out with someone, just be man up about it.
You've heard what these guys said about masculinity. What's your definition of masculinity? Kia ora, Rick. Thanks for joining me on the Becoming Tāne podcast. I'm looking to sharing your story with our listeners today. Rick, I believe that we are who we are because of the experiences we have in life. What 2 events in your life has had the greatest impact on you?
one of the big ones is when my parents divorced way back in 1985, I think it was, 84, 85. They had an impact and really didn't know the impact that they had in terms of my own relationship with my wife and my daughter. The positive that came out of it, I got to live with my grandparents and learn so much of them. They had a significant, so when that significant event was, in my story that I told myself was, hey, my mum left, and you just can't trust wahine because they leave. And so I had this story. Then when my sister moved up, it just reconfirmed that story again. That hey, you just can't trust them; they leave, and so the impact was that really never getting really close to, well, too close to wahine. And it wasn't until about 2007 as the second significant event, or the significant event was in 2000. I got married to my wonderful wife, and she was beautiful. But in 2007. It got to a point where I couldn't talk to her, and she was probably ready to leave. Well, she was ready to kick me out of the house, really. And I went on this course called Landmark Education. And Landmark Education is that you educated you about yourself, your stories, the decisions and choices that you made, and didn't realize how much impact that my parents' divorce had, and the story that I had made up about my mum leaving and that you can't trust her. And so my wife would used to go to me, "Big brother, is everything okay?" And I go, I'm fine. But I'll just shut shop, wouldn't talk, wouldn't open up. And the impact, and it was frustrating you because I was going through stuff, but I just couldn't talk to her because in my whakaaro, or my thought pattern was, don't share too much and give 100% of your heart because she'll leave. But in being that way, she was going to leave anyway, which was just reconfirming that story. So when on then, I just found out how much, I suppose, hidden the things that you don't know that are impacting you and have them being, that you discover them. I realized how much I hadn't connected to my wife and wasn't able to talk about things that were really personal to me or the emotions that I was going through. I was going through those things that you're male chauvinist, you're macho and masculinity, but I just didn't know how to communicate. But the real impact of that pūrākau even went down to my daughter. When we found out, and my wife still remembers, and I still remember it clear as when we went for tests, scans, and they said, "Oh, it's a girl," and the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "Oh, she's going to leave." And that was just more of a safety mechanism for me that, hey, I don't want to get hurt again, so don't get too close. And so I really never connected to her, maybe for the first couple of years. I loved her, but just didn't want to get too close. And that just played out. And so that my wife was getting angry with me about, the way I was being. And so 2007 was a massive year in terms of that breakthrough and understanding that I was able to go to my mum and go to her, "Hey, Mum, I'm sorry for the way I've been treating you," because that was my trump card. My poker card was, if anything went wrong, I always come back, "Hey, you're the one that left, so don't blame us." And I realized how much times I was stabbing my mum in the heart. And when I was able to complete that with her, it just opened up a whole new world. I just said, "Hey, I'm sorry. That was my fault. I made that up." And it just snowballed into my relationship with my wife. I was able to, if I was down, I was able to say, "I'm not happy. I'm not angry," instead of just bottling it all up. I was able to get closer to my daughter and be with her. Just totally transformational. It's a massive significant event because I would work my butt off just to avoid having to talk. And it was in 2007, I think I hit the wall at work. I just couldn't work I was working 7 days a week, anywhere up to 12 hours a day, just going. But because the other thing that came out of that was I couldn't say no. So people ring me up, "Can you do this?" Yes. I want to go. I go, no, yes. And just say yes. And so that was a big transformation for me in that year, was 2 words, no, and to reconnect and have affinity and love with these significant wahine in my life, and to I suppose tap into that wahine element that being vulnerable and being connected with them. Yeah, I always go back to that's a big transformation. Even though I was raised up in a privileged home, raised up by great families, I was going to a church and getting all these gospel principles and being taught all this, mātauranga Māori. But it was the stuff that was going on internally, and I just didn't know how to deal with. We were told to love everyone, but just didn't know that I had blocked off certain parts of my ngākau that were locked, and I wasn't going to open it, and needed a course to see that. And when that opened up, it's a lot more open, a lot more being free with people, and just be a lot more generous with my time, my heart, and with my whānau. It was quite interesting. My mum went on this course. It was just, I suppose, the right time, right place. My mum actually went on it first, and I was like, oh, she needs that. And then she brought us along as a guest, and so I signed my wife up. And so, yep, she needs to go there. I'm fine. I'm absolutely nothing wrong with me. But I did sign up because I trusted my mum and I trusted my wife. And she wanted me to do it at the same time, and I was like, I just can't do it at that time. Come up with every excuse not to do it, but I did it about 3 months later. And it was just because my wife said to do it. I trusted her. My mum had done it, and I'd seen the change in them. I just didn't think there was anything wrong with me. And there wasn't. It was just having that trust. And I had to do something because I had gone to the doctors, and because I couldn't hold my tools. My hands were shaking. I just couldn't concentrate, just couldn't sleep. And I thought, and then it's not until I went to the doctors and walked into the doctors, and I was just sitting there, and he goes, what's wrong? And I said, I don't know. I just can't work. I just can't hold my tools. I just can't concentrate. And because with the work I do, it is there's some scenes that you just can't unsee. It's got to a point I just couldn't do it. As soon as the doctor said to me, you've got anxiety, or are you depressed? My mind was able to start figuring that out. I just didn't know where I was. But once I got that, just the doctor said, you might be this, that was enough for me to start figuring out the process, or how can I get out of this? This course just happened to be there not long after that. And it was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Many men find it difficult to go to the doctors. What motivated you to go see the doctor?
Oh, actually, my wife dragged me there. I still, even now, go to the doctor. No, I'm fine. But she literally held my hand and made me go to the doctor. It was just when he said that a light bulb moment went off in my head that I was like, okay, I'm fine. I can work through this. I just didn't know where to start from. Even if we just go to the shop, and we're walking to the store, and the shop attendant comes up. We know we're looking for something, and the shop attendant comes up. Hey, can I help you with something? Straight away, us men will go, no, I'm fine. We'll rather walk the whole store trying to look for something than to show that we're vulnerable. Helping people means there's a negative, and it's something that's wrong. We never like being helped because that means I'm in a position of vulnerability. That means I'm not good enough. Those are all the corridor that we go through when someone's, can I help you? I did need help, but I didn't need someone to say, help you. People would go to me, oh, you just need a man up. That was the worst thing, because I was like, am I not being man enough? Am I, you just need to pray and read the scripture. You just need to, people from church, you just need to go to church. Well, that wasn't helping. That was just making things worse, because I just couldn't do anything. And then they say, hey, you're not doing this. And so they just continued that spiral. If we're going to talk to someone, the last thing you want to say is, hey, can I help you? Because the first reaction from someone's just going to be no, even though they could be screaming for help. You just don't start with that word, because that means I'm in a higher position, that you're down, that you need me. It's just that we just got to flip our thinking a bit and see how we can empower them.
how would you approach somebody who obviously needed help? What would be the language you would use?
It's just saying, hey, how you doing? What are you up to today? Oh, what is it you're looking for? Oh, what colour? You coming from a different sort of go, can I help you? They're going to go, no. But how are you? Oh, I'm great. Oh, how's your day going? Awesome. What are you up to? So you just change the conversation and come from another way and eventually get to, oh, what's the challenge you're facing now? So you're just using a different tact, getting to the same result, but just changing the language so they don't feel like that you're belittling them.
Mean Movement is kaupapa that is helping many men in New Zealand and in Australia over the last few years. Today I have Rikki Ormsby here to tell us about this movement. Rikki is one of the core leaders of Amen, so I'll get him to tell you a little bit about their kaupapa.
Kia ora everyone. We're a not-for-profit organisation and our goal is to shift and reshape the narrative of what it means to be a strong person. And that's through helping ourselves and others feel comfortable enough and vulnerable enough to express their thoughts, feelings and emotions and to know that it's okay to do so. We want to provide an environment and build a community that's built around inclusiveness, making people feel comfortable enough no matter who they are, where they're from, what their background is, what they've done, to know that it's okay to be who they are. And that's the kind of environment that we want to provide for people so that they can feel unjudged and be themselves. When we started Amend, it's been all built around providing and facilitating walks and workshops. Those walks and workshops have been so far conducted across Australia and also New Zealand. Those walks and workshops are designed to take people on a journey. They're conducted across a day and they're facilitated by a team of our core leaders. And what they're there to do is to help people break down walls and become vulnerable and share into a safe space. We know that when people turn up to our workshops and walks, that there's a whole lot of walls that are up at the beginning. And through that process of sharing and through the different activities that we conduct throughout that workshop or walk, people go through a process of self-discovery. And what that really does is allows them to delve into not only who they are, but where they've come from and what's created who they are and what they have in their life right now. So we help them navigate through dealing with trauma. And those traumas can be a whole host of things. In the space that we provide, we hear and we know that often people are opening up and sharing things, sometimes for the very first time. And that can be a very liberating thing for people. It can also be a very daunting and scary thing for people. So it's really important that we provide the right environment, that people know they're understood and they're seen. From there, the aftercare that we provide is a really, really important part of what we do also. So feeling connected and feeling that they're a part of something, and that's where we have our Amen community, our Amen family. And that's done through our closed groups and also our pages. So we have various different pages and groups, and also we have online programs as well. So if we were to look at what a workshop and a walk does, they're designed to really open the door. And then our online programs is where the transformations occur. And they're designed to really kick that door in, so to speak.
For any more information about the Amen Movement and any of their programs, hikoi, please go to their website, which is www.amendmovement.com, which is AMENDMOVEMENT.com. Amen Movement can also be found on Facebook and Instagram, so go check them out. Welcome back to the podcast. Rick, I believe each of us is born with a superpower. I define a superpower as a particular skill, ability, or attribute that makes you you. It is your secret sauce. It is what people remember about you. With this premise in mind, Rick, what are your superpowers?
I think one of my superpowers would be I'm super patient. You know, I'll sit and listen. It's one of probably my greatest strengths is being patient even with my children, my family, whatever they're going through, just being patient. But sometimes it's my superpower and my super weakness too. It's my greatest strength and my greatest curse. Gets me into so much trouble. Where were you? I was just listening. Well, why don't you hang it up? Other superpowers, empathy, understanding. Basically, ability to understand where people are going through and listening. Listening to what people are going through, and hopefully I can also reliably deliver to what they care about. Letting myself go and try and be present to the person that I'm working with. But try and be humble. It's a superpower. I've been humble and being humari. It's allowing others to be great around you. I'll rather be the ultimate bag carrier and support people. I'm totally comfortable in that position, but at the same time to be thrown out the front too and to lead the way and just really knowing who I am and who they are.
Rick, this is what your significant other told me about your superpowers. Superpower number 1, you are a kaitiaki. You are a guardian and protector of the earth, sea, sky, and the realm of Wairua. Rick, you're like a Māori version of Captain Planet plus some. Superpower number 2, strength. You're very strong physically, mentally, and spiritually. Superpower number 3, humor. You're quick-witted and can break intense situations easily. Superpower number 4, generosity and love. You have a huge love for people and will give your time and talents to help whoever whenever you can. These are the superpowers your wife thinks of you. What do you think?
It's quite humbling to hear it. Sometimes we don't say it to each other, but it's beautiful to hear that and how she views me. But I'm blessed that she's generous and allowing me to contribute to others as well, and that she's patient as. She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. And I wouldn't be able to do anything of the things I get up to without her total 100% support.
You mentioned earlier about being humble and that sometimes this can be seen as a weakness by some people. Can you talk to me about this?
I think sometimes, I suppose when we talk about male, our ego, we think that we have to be forceful. We think we have to be controlling. But I'm always looking for an opportunity where it's a win-win, that both parties or whoever we're working together, it's a win-win for everyone. And you can allow someone else to have their ego, but also be humble enough not to get caught up in that ego as well. As we say, let the air go. And some of the people I work with and been mentored with are very humble as I think of Papa Reriata, Mark Kōpua and Dai Kōpua. Beautiful, humble wairua. They're just so patient and generous with their time. I suppose it depends on where you are in your life. I see this in the education system when I was doing my master's. The ones that were up and coming, trying to climb and were young, were very bashful, fighting. And then when you listen to when we had the kaumata and kuia who were in Mairopo, they'll just sit there and go, "Hey, Rikki, I never saw it from that way." They're in two different spaces, and I find those that are where they are comfortable and they're happy with everything there, they don't have to force anything, it just flows. But if your feet aren't firm and planted, you generally tend to stand on other people's toes and fingers, trying to get to a place that's, I suppose, it's not a real place, it's not even a place to be, it's within yourself.
You spoke earlier about allowing others to be great around you. I've seen you do this in various settings we've been in together. It's a very admirable trait of yours. But has this been something that you've always done, or has it developed over time?
I think when I go back younger, and I think back when I first started business, it was all about being the best. And being the best, you'll just push and push and push. But the only one that was really suffered is really him. And I suppose in the words of Kung Fu Panda and Master Shifu, it's about finding your inner peace. And that's when you have your inner peace and you're settled within yourself and you don't have to prove anything, it's just so much more peaceful. You find peace within yourself, and then you have that relationship with your children. I go to all the events. It got to a point my daughter's like, "Why do you come to all my events? Can you stay away, please?" And it's a beautiful thing because I'm always there. Or my son will be so angry with me if I just miss one activity at the school because I've always gone to them. And I'll probably be one of the only fathers that will be on school trips, or it allows me to have that time with them. I know a lot of our fathers want to spend so much more time with their kids, but it's trying to figure out how you can make that work.
Kia ora again, everyone. Just reminding you about our t-shirts that are now for sale. You can go to our website, which is www.becomingtane.men, and on our merchandise tab is where you can access our t-shirts that are now for sale. Now, last week I told you about a couple of t-shirts that we're selling on there. I've got a couple more t-shirts that I'd like to highlight for you this week. The t-shirts that I'm highlighting is our Growing Great Guys t-shirt. We have that t-shirt in black, white and grey. And then the other t-shirt that I'd like to highlight this week is our G3 t-shirt. So that is our G3 t-shirt, which is just the 3 G's for Growing Great Guys. And that t-shirt is also in black, white and grey. There are a number of sizes you can get. So please purchase a t-shirt to support me developing content for the Becoming Tane podcast and for other content that we're looking to share with everyone this year. So thank you for support. Once again, go out and buy your t-shirt, Growing Great Guys t-shirt and our G3 t-shirt. Kia ora. Welcome back to the podcast. My guest today is Rikki Solomon. Rick, I believe that life is our greatest teacher. So Rick, what has life taught you so far in your life?
Oh, life is a game. It's an ultimate game. It's a game that just never ends. We approach life like a game and be creative around it. We have a saying at work that I always have, and because I've been in the funeral industry, the saying was, people die at 20 and buried at 80. Well, it took me a little while to get that. People die at 20 and buried at 80, meaning when we, in our childhood and everything, the world was our oyster. We could play, we could imagine whatever we wanted to be. I remember growing up wanting to be a fireman, a policeman, an All Black, you name it. I could be anything that I wanted, and then reality hit in at the age of 20 when I went to work and then just got stuck in that rut. And so a lot of our passion in life disappears, and then we just get buried at 80. For those years, we're just trudging through and oblivious to everything, just going through the motions, not even being present. And so that's just a reminder with me. And I suppose the other one, being working in the funeral industry, is that every day I've got a reminder how fragile life was. A constant reminder that every day is a gift. Every day you just don't know what's going to happen. And I would rather go out of this life absolutely wrecked, physically, given everything I can in this game, and go out really happy and being with you, doing everything I can to be a great father. And I've been to funerals where they say, Dad was a great worker, he was amazing at work, but his children were talking about how great their dad worked at work. And I'm like, I don't know how great he worked at work. Or how great was your dad at being a dad? How great were you being a husband? That's where that little shift, because work can consume us, and that's what they're saying. We spend the next 50, 60 years of work that consumes all of our time and our space. So what I've learned about life is life just comes at you, and every day you need to make a choice. You can choose what your life looks to be, and if you don't have a plan, you just end up drifting through life. Every year, every month, you get to create what that looks like. What sort of life do you want? You know, one of the things I try to really work on in terms of my life is never really getting to know my wife, and that put me in a position that every day I have to try and get to know her. Because if I think I know her, then I'm just going to treat her as my wife. And with my daughter is trying to look at her from that I don't know her, then trying to do something to get to know her. It's a little bit of a different way of looking at life, but it just opens up a whole different space in terms, because when we get comfortable, we stop doing the little things that we used to do, like opening the door, doing this, because we've become comfortable with each other. And if I look at my wife and my kids as of not really getting to know them, I will just keep treating them as the best I can in the little things. Life just comes at you. Whatever throws at you you just quickly adapt to it. You can plan for things, but I've worked with whānau, and you could be here one day gone, or you could hit with an illness, or could be an accident. You just got to be prepared to adapt to whatever situation that you come in. People say life's not fair. That's what you do with it. Some of the most inspirational people I've listened to have lost everything, or they are just so awe-inspiring. And I think what happens is a lot of us think we don't have a great story. Every single person has an awesome story. You just hear someone else's story and you make their story better than yours.
Rick, if there was one thing that you would like the listeners of the Becoming Tāne podcast to take away from your kōrero today, what would that be?
It's never too late to change. No matter where you are and what stage of life is, you can transform and change any time that you choose to. People often say, I'm too old, I'm past that, I can't do that. No, it's only you that's limited that. It's you are only stopping you. And go out and the whakaaro that we're using now was, we say we look to our tūpuna, but be a tūpuna now. Be the tūpuna. Be a legacy. Be the legacy now. Go and live an adventurous life. I've done some things I'm like, wow. I've done things I would never have dreamed of. I grew up in a little place in Te Hauki on the farm, but one thing is, you're never too old to do anything. I did in New York. We went to a New York marathon, and there's a kaumata, Papa Tom. He was 72. He came over and did it, and it was something that he never did when he was younger. It just inspired me to see him still out there, traveling around with all these young fellas and still giving everything a go.
Final question. The name of the podcast is called Becoming Tāne. It is named after Tāne because it can be translated into English to mean man, male, or husband. It is also named after Tāne Mahuta, one of our atua, because of his desire to learn and grow. So the last question relates to this. What do you think it means to become a man?
That's a good one. Tāne. To be great. I often think of Tāne Mahuta and Tāne, and we do teach a lot about him. Tāne wasn't afraid to give things a go. And Tāne didn't try to do everything himself. Tāne was a man, a atua that relied on the contributions of others. So when I think of what does it mean to become a man in terms of being balanced and knowing who you are, but also allowing others to contribute to you and becoming a man. And when I'm not just talking about men teaching you to be men, it's wahine teaching you to be a tāne as well, so that you're well balanced. Imagine if you could be able to be physically strong, but also have a soft part where you're able to communicate really well in terms of that taha wahine side, where you're that feminine side, that you could be soft, kind, and gentle. And that's when we look around Aotearoa and have a look through a lot of things they're going through our tāne, is they need to be a lot more gentle on themselves, gentle on their families. We have a lot of intergenerational trauma, so to be kind and to be vulnerable, it's a big ask, and some people will struggle with that. But they have every tāne, every man in Aotearoa has a story, it has a pūrākau. They have a journey that they've been on that will be totally inspire someone else. So I suppose to become a man is to come to a place where you have that inner peace, you can let go of the ego, you become, or that you are soft, kind, gentle, but physically strong, also still maintaining your mana. That's a huge question, but I think we're all striving to be that. I would often say, if you ask me, am I the perfect man? No. I still have chinks in my armour, but we're striving to be a man.
Rick, I really appreciate your time and the wisdom you shared with us today. Like you, I too have many chinks in my armour, and that armour needs continual mending and fixing. So again, thank you very much. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou I whakarongo kia māua e tēnei rā, kei te pirangi au I ako koutou mai te kōrero a Rick. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you learned something from Rick's story. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcast platform you're listening from today. You can download the Becoming Tāne podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. If you'd like to contact us, our email is becomingtane@gmail.com. Our handle on Facebook and Instagram is @becomingtane. Our website is www.becomingtane.men. As always, I'd like to do some acknowledgement. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge Rick for sharing your kōrero, Kano Sadler for your amazing musical talents for the podcast, Aaron and Merrick Moike for your editing skills, and as always, my wife and kids for putting up with my faults. Hei a te rā wiki, until next week, haere tū atu, hoki tū mai, go well and return in good health, mauri ora.